What is up people, this is Virus HQ, and in this video I'll be showing you how to configure XMR stack and how to use the stub file correctly. So let's start. First let's make sure that the rig is on 1.3.3, so we'll just run the cat versions thing. And there it shows that it's on 1.3.3. So now let's take a look at the config file. So this config file is purely for BitTube and it's pretty simple. Like the first three lines, these are the common lines that we normally have, and then we just set the miner as XMR stack over here. Then the proxy wallet, which would contain the BitTube wallet, the proxy pools, and the XMR stacks flag lines. Now this flag line is important because over here is where you set everything. So to begin with, we just set the currency as -- currency, and then we just type down the currency. I will show you the list of the mineable currencies, and I'll also link it down in the description so you can take a look at it. The next part is --AMD, and this is used to define the stub file or the config or JSON file for the miner to run off of. And since this rig is all AMD, hence I define it for AMD. So home ethos XMR stack amd.stub.config. The other things we defined are fan, core, voltage, memory, etc. Like the overclocking would go on, but in case of kryptonite mining, what I usually do is I usually stick to the memory frequencies that were defined for Ethos mining, and the core as 1250 to begin with. So that's it. Now, like if we run show miner, this is what we see. We currently have 8 GPUs on the system, but it currently shows as 16 GPUs or like 16 threads because of the dual thread config that I set. And in the next part I'll show you how it is done. So this is the total hash rate, like close to 8,000, and this is the highest hash rate that it has been at. But if you look at the stats, it almost shows the half of it because it can only process the first thread of the miner. Since I have the pre-configured stub, I'll just remove it, and let's start again. So we'll just run rm XMR STAK.amd.stub.config and hit enter, and that would remove the stub file, and it would just recreate a new one if we run minestop. So let's run minestop and show miner. These all errors just show up on XMR stack, but ignore them. Now that we have the single threaded stub file, or the default one, it just shows up as like 8 threads are running, or sorry, 8 instances are running, and each one is at about 780 to 715. 715 one is the one which is the GPU which has the Hynix card, and the rest are Samsung cards. And if you look at it, the Samsung cards are almost consistent, and the Hynix card is as well. So if we just come out of here and we just like open up the stub file right now, it will just show up like this. This is the default stub file, and the top portion, it like explains each and every part of the stub, and it's all commented out. So I usually do is I just remove it. Next, if you look closer, like it has index 0 for GPU 0, index 1 for GPU 1, and so on up to index 7, which is GPU 8. And yes, that's that, but that would only give you like a very less amount of hash rate, which are close to 6200. But since we need more, like we would need to edit it. So what we would do is we would just like copy all the like everything inside the GPU threads config and like paste it twice. So it goes from index 0 to index 7 and index 0 to index 7 again. So it will automatically make it dual threaded. So now let's test it out. And now if you look at the miner output, it shows 16 threads, 0 to 7 for the first thread and 8 to 15 for the second thread for each GPU. And now if you look at the hash rates as well, like it dropped down on the single thread, but it multiplied itself by 2. So before it was at about 780, now it's like, what's it, 1024 or 1025, and like that was an easy fix. It simply increased your hash rate from like 6200 to 8050. But if you even wanted to get into more tuning, like you would just like open the file again and replace and like change the intensity. Now what we usually do is like what XMR STAK usually does is that it would like set default intensity for each GPU, which is based on the GPU as well as the VRAM size it has. But since all our cards are like 8 GB VRAM GPUs, like it set the intensity to 864. But if we replace it with 504 intensity, like let's see what happens. Since we lowered the intensity, the hash rate on each GPU lowered as well, and it's down to like 6661, which is quite lower than the one we had before, which was at close to 8050. And now let's try increasing the intensity. So let's change it again, 1008, and like let's replace it on all. And now let's test it out. This is going to result in a higher hash rate because of the increased intensity, and increased intensity literally means like you are like stressing the card a bit more. And now if you look at it, the hash rate is climbing up, and it would climb up to a certain extent and then it would just stop over there and like keep on hashing on that level. So that's what happens when you play with the stub file and the intensity. You can also change the mem chunk size, the unroll, the comp mode, started index, and so on. Like it was all mentioned in the commented section that we just deleted. People, just keep in mind that the highest intensity isn't always going to work. So you might have to play with it and like make sure that you play with it, and like numbers divisible by 4, that makes it a lot more easier. So thank you people for watching this video. Like this video if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't, subscribe to the channel, press the bell icon, and see you next time. Ta-da!